said, we're very fortunate that Phillip Tuwaletstiwa has joined us. Phillip worked for the Geodetic Society, National Geodetic Survey, and he did a lot of the work at Chaco. And so we're real honored to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak about one of my favorite subjects, as many in this room, is that's Chaco Canyon. I don't know if I'm a geologist, but I was trained as a geologist, and we're the people that go about trying to determine the size and shape of the earth. And early on, I heard Anna Sofer give a talk in LA to the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. And that's when you could have put most of us Indian scientists into a phone booth. But she gave this talk, and she talked particularly about her opinion that she had, no question, a solar marker up on Fajada Butte. And she broached the subject that she also had a lunar marker. Now, I had breakfast with my good friend G.B. Cornucopia this morning, and he agrees that Chimney Rock is a lunar site, but he has reservations about others, and I know that people probably also wonder about the contention that some of these buildings and alignments between buildings in Chaco are lunar or not. No question of the solar. But in the Pueblo world, you have it's binary in the sense, or it's dualities. And so if you have good, you have evil. If you have shadow, you have light. If you have the sun, you have the moon. And so it would seem reasonable that if you have buildings in Chaco, such as Bonito, that the back wall of Chetraquitl, for example, is very close to being aligned with the moon at its major standstill. And so in my way of seeing things, that makes sense. That if you're going to have buildings with solar orientations, it's not unreasonable that you will have buildings with lunar orientations. Now, lunar alignments I'm talking to a group of astronomers, and everyone knows that lunar cycle, 18.6 years, is a long cycle. And then you reach the question, well, what's the practicality of the lunar cycle? Well, we saw last night that Hopis use the new moon as the start of a particular countdown for a ceremony. But other people in the marine environment, the lunar cycle is critical because that's tides. And the tides are essential to marine environments. But on an interior agricultural society, well, then maybe what's the use? Well, I would go back to the idea of dualities, that in the Pueblo world, everything has a balance with something else that is in contrast. That's why at Hopi ceremonies you may have the dignified casinas performing, but at the same time, usually around lunchtime, in come the clowns. And they represent a whole other side. It's called Kahopi. It's the way you should not behave. And they do it. So I think that it is not unlikely that you have these two types of orientations. The orientations are like Chetraquitl, the back wall, which is about halfway between where the moon arises in a level plane and where you actually see it come up above the cliff. And that wall seems to, in what I've looked at, split the difference between the two, which I think is very sophisticated. But so then in addition to that, there's also the orientation between a building here and a building 6 or 7 miles away, also on different cosmic alignments, mainly sun and moon. Stellar alignments are very difficult because there's too many stars and they're nearly impossible to document a stellar alignment. But you can document these solar and in my belief, lunar alignments. So the question then becomes, why do it? And I think that I heard, I think it was Eric today mentioned the idea of the chaos that exists in our what I would call the material world, the world that we're experiencing at this moment. And it does seem chaotic. I won't even address our present administration, but it's always been chaotic. The world is chaotic. There's things that are unpredictable, weather, and the Navajos have a wonderful belief system to try and bring that into balance, and I admire that system. But if instead of that, for example, if you can take the cosmic phenomena such as standstills of the moon, standstills of the sun, the equinoxes, and such things, and you can create a template and bring that template down and impose it over the ground, over distances, or within a building construction, then you have something precise, something definite, something to hang your hat on, so to speak. You have taken this world of chaos and imposed on it a cosmic template, which is solid and predictable, and you can rely on it. And I will branch out briefly, a little bit analogous to that, is that we have these roads all through the Southwest that emanate out or into buildings, and I'll address that in a second. But you have a great house, and then you have a road that goes out. Now, there's a mistaken notion that these roads are a huge network over the Southwest. Well, in actuality, there are very few roads more than a few kilometers long. The North Road being an exception. The North Road goes for about 40-some miles out of Alto North up to Coots Canyon, but it's just not a road. It's a series, it's a corridor. It's a series of parallel roads, and it does go due north. But that's the exception. There's also the South Road, which I think is about 16 kilometers long, and it goes down towards Hosta Butte. It does not go directly south. They could have made a road go directly south. They choose not to. They choose to go to a landmark. But so you have these great houses, and you have these roads that are turning. And what I believe the good thing about Chaco is everyone has a theory. Everyone can have a theory, and no one can really say you're wrong because they don't know any more about it than you or as an individual. If your theory has sort of a validity to it. And what I see in the same sense of this cosmic template, which is laid on to us and to provide some order and structure to us, these roads I see as they are formalized for a relatively short distance out of the great houses, only a kilometer or two, and they don't go very far. They probably extend way beyond that. And what are they pointing to? Well, it could be something that's a cosmic. It could be a historic event that out there. It could be to an area that it has some spiritual significance where something happened. It could be where there's a vegetation or a mineral or a certain thing. And what I see then is at this great house, it isn't that the road is starting and going out from the great house. What's happening, the road is coming into the great house and spiritually anchoring it in space. And it gives and if you could have gone back to those Chaco times, you could say, well, where's that road goes? Well, it goes out, and it's where this event occurred long ago, and it has this pathway, this spiritual pathway that's coming in, and it's helping us anchor ourselves here in space. And when we go enter or leave the great house, we're following that line of spiritual power, and it gives us an anchor. And we can relate to that far distant event, or it could be as far as into the heavens, or it could be to a landmark. So that's just an idea of how I have experienced Chaco and how I see it with these invisible lines that are laid across the whole landscape. And I just came from I'm going to have to stop in mid-sentence. But right now, Chaco's in danger. We need to protect it. Manifest destiny is not good. It is active. It is. I said in a little talk I gave down at the SAA conference in Albuquerque, if you stood atop Bajada Butte and you looked out, you could see a black cloud of evil rolling towards Chaco, and that's oil and gas development, and I find it very threatening. I said that there are people in the commercial side, I swear that if they thought there was oil in the third world, they'd drill through the Hopi Sipapuni to get to it. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.